After a cremation, one of the hardest questions we have to ask is, what do we actually do with the ashes? In this video, I'm going to share with you 11 of the most popular and meaningful ways to honour that family member. By the end, you should have a good idea of what is best suited to you, that person, and the remaining family. Some of these will be traditional, others will be more creative and modern. I'm going to share some of my own personal stories as well, and talk about what worked best for my family. If you're planning ahead for a loved one, or considering your own wishes, consider subscribing. On this channel, we cover funeral arrangements, end-of-life planning, coping with grief, and meaningful ways to celebrate a life. Number 1, we have the urn. This is a very traditional option, and one I would highly recommend if things happen fast and you don't have time to plan, because you can always place ashes in an urn in the interim, and then select another option later on, various places to scatter or make use of the ashes. An urn will generally sit on a mantle or a place of importance in your house, and it'll be wood, ceramic, or even marble, and it'll be that place to reflect and be close to that person you've just lost. A lot of people will just always have their family member in an urn, and a number of different urns that are shared by the family members, each having one and a portion of the ashes, or just in a central location. One important tip is if you're dealing directly with a funeral home, there's a rather large markup on urns, anywhere from 100 to 300% in some cases, so it's definitely worth doing your research, and an independent retailer might be a better option. Money's not everything in a situation like this, but it might be a consideration. Number 2 is scattering over water. This is a timeless choice because water represents eternity and renewal. The most popular options in this case are an ocean, river, or lake. And this choice is a little bit less about the physical ashes and a bit more about creating a spot where you or your family members can come to sort of think about and honour that person even years down the line. It'll give you that space to really connect with them, and similar to an urn, be close to them. The method of scattering can vary a fair amount. These days, a biodegradable urn is a popular choice. It can get a little bit messy scattering into the wind, and if a wind changes in a moment's notice, it can be a bit of an ordeal. A lot of people will also mix the ashes with petals of some kind and sort of just pour gently into the water. It gives a more visual, appealing look as that floats away. If you're recording the event, this is also a popular choice. Otherwise, just a few select family members and scattering from a boat or off a jetty is the most common way of doing this. You might need to check your local or state laws regarding permits. Ocean burials might require a little bit more logistics in terms of organising a boat or even a ship if you've got a large party that are doing the release, whereas rivers are a lot more intimate and easy, or even a lake or a dam or some place of importance to that person that you're saying goodbye to. If they're living by the water, it's probably something deep and personal to them, and a great way to remember them. It's always this balance of trying to find, how you would like to remember them, and also what they would want for themselves. The third option is an aerial scatter through nature, and this is a big one for the adventurous spirits, the hikers, the people that loved wide open spaces. And in this, it'll generally be, an open meadow or a mountainside, somewhere wide open where you scatter the ashes and they gently move along the plains. It's less about having that physical spot to always remember them, a bit more releasing that spirit and that sense of adventure out into the world in a place that they'd want to be remembered. The fourth option is a firework celebration, and this is very modern and a little bit different, and it's a lot more associated with a celebration of life. So if you had that person that was a larger than life character who really wanted to sort of celebrate and be remembered as fun and want to bring joy to a situation, this can be a great option. Essentially, in a very practical sense, it's the ashes mixed through with fireworks. There are particular companies that will do it, and then obviously you have someone legal to do the pyrotechnics for it, and it's a lot more of a celebration. It's a burst of colour. A lot of times people will talk, and you'll do a separate set of eulogies that you might not have done at a funeral, and it's that place of joy. A lot of times that will be recorded as well for future generations or to watch back, and a lot more of a celebration. There might be food afterwards, a lot more of a party atmosphere in some situations. I know that sounds a little bit strange, but there are people in life that just really works. And looking back at sort of my sister's passing, I think if it wasn't quite so traumatic with her cancer, she would have been an ideal candidate because she was that larger than life personality that really brought the fun. And I think people really would have enjoyed that if things were a little bit different in sort of her illness in the later stages and it wasn't so grim. I think this would have been a perfect choice for someone like her. The fifth option is cremation jewellery. Now this is one of the fastest growing ones, and it involves using the ashes to turn into a pendant or a ring or just jewellery of any particular kind, and with this, in some cases even diamonds. This is a popular one because ashes can go a fair way and you can have multiple pieces of jewellery made for multiple members, and there's no sort of way outside of wearing it to be any closer to that loved one. That's their way of remembering that person. It is they want that person close to them, and jewelry's an amazing fit for this. You've got a plethora of options. A lot of funeral homes will work with various companies, or you can do your own research independently. If I'll have a look through and leave a few of my picks in the description, both US and Australian. But this is a great modern way to sort of a little bit more personal than an urn. An urn might be a place, it sits on a mantle, you visit it, you think about them when you look at the urn, but that jewelry is something you can rub, you can physically hold in a moment of stress, and that person that you've lost might really help bring you comfort. I can see why this is, science is a beautiful thing, and it's brought these new options into play, and I think jewelry is only going to be more popular in the future. Added to this, because you only need a little bit, you could still have a traditional urn, or you could still put ashes in a fixed location or a scattering and still have a little bit to make that piece of jewelry. Number 6 is trenching, and this involves just digging a small hole, often only a couple of inches deep, placing the ashes inside and then covering it up. This is also generally done with a ceremony where people will say a few words, not necessarily eulogies, and this spot is, again, somewhere that they might have enjoyed. It might even be in a home that they owned, a backyard, a farm. It's a lot more about returning that person to the earth and in a place that that was important to them. Number 7 on the list is raking into soil, and this is a little bit of a different one, but it's putting the ashes through a garden bed, and essentially most people will grow flowers or some form of agriculture. This is a good fit for farmers or anyone who's really sort of passionate about the outdoors, and specifically gardening. It's a bit more about adding back to the earth and being in a place that you wanted to be or that was important to you. I think this would be a great choice for a grandparent who was a farmer or worked the land or just didn't want anything extravagant or over the top, or even sort of a fixed place like a headstone, like just someone who wanted to return to a place that was important to them. Number 8 is a tree memorial, and this is where your ashes are blended with a biodegradable urn that also has soil and a seed and is planted in the ground for a tree to grow. This is relatively new and modern, but I think it's one of the best ones on this list personally, and it's something I would seriously consider for myself. People down the line can take a son or a grandson to visit a tree that is there, physically there and growing, and also contributing. It's processing CO2, it's environmentally friendly. I think this is one of the best ones on the list, and it's something I would seriously consider personally. I will leave links in the description to a couple of companies that do it in the US and Australia. Worth a look if you think that would be a good fit for the person. Number 9 is memorial reefs, but it involves fusing the ashes with a reef ball, like a biodegradable reef ball, well, reef will grow on the ocean. It's a good fit for someone who spent a lot of time on the ocean, such as a sailor or a fisherman. I had a friend who, sadly passed a decade ago now, and he was a spear fisherman. And a lot of his close friends had a plaque that they put in his favourite underwater fishing spot that they would visit down in the Gold Coast. And I think the technology wasn't around then, but I think he'd be a prime candidate for something like this, because reef is that sense of renewal. Reefs globally are dying out, and I think sort of someone who's very passionate, enthusiastic about the ocean and marine life, this might be the perfect fit, because it's a place that reinvigorates that environment and fish live, and it's not necessarily easy to visit for family members the same, but it's an impactful personal choice, and if the person you're planning for hasn't yet passed away, it could be a conversation worth having. Number 10 is ashes mixed with ink. And this, again, a very modern take, but you only need sort of trace amounts of ashes to blend in with ink to put with a tattoo. This is, again, deeply personal, and it's also not independent. You can still have ashes in an urn or scattered. You only need a very trace amount, but if you want to sort of put something permanent on your own body and skin, this is an excellent choice for a lot of people. You can put a date or look through various designs or find something that means a lot to you and that person. Number 11, and the final one, is a creative keepsake, and this could be pottery, it could be vinyl. There are a lot of different options now in terms of fusing ashes with some form of creative alloy to make something that is just deeply personal to you. Again, it doesn't necessarily, only trace amounts need to be used in some cases, so it can be a great fit. As you can probably see by this list, there's no right or wrong with this. It's all a deeply personal choice that you, your family, and potentially even that person before they passed away has made. I think it's definitely worth considering what they would want the most, especially if these options weren't discussed. Think about who they were as a person and sort of how they would want to be remembered. I think that is, by and large, the most important thing. If you do have any ideas of what you would want to do for yourself or what you've done for a family member, I'd love for you to leave a comment. I think that goes a long way to just helping other people who are reading. This is an incredibly difficult thing to decide on. It's an important, long-lasting one, and I think giving people the ability to read and see what other people are doing really helps. It helped me when I was trying to decide what to do for my father and my sister, and I'd really appreciate that. If this video has helped you at all, I'd really appreciate a like as well. It goes to helping the algorithm, and really I just want to get this video in front of more eyes so it could potentially help people in a difficult situation.